Byomkesh Bakshy was the first script I wrote immediately after Khosla. I remember it writing almost simultaneously with Lucky because both those scripts were kind of jumping out of me. I remember sharing it with my wife first, and who's a very integral part of most of my creative process. And she said that this really has something, the tone, the style. But she said, of course, you'll have to write it now. The draft that we see on screen is probably the 6th or the 7th draft. Usually all my scripts go through those drafts, probably not because I'm a perfectionist or anything like that, because the first 1 or 2 drafts which I write alone are very silly. My co-writer Urmi, it takes her about 2 or 3 drafts to get out of the silliness and then put some process and order and movement and into the thing, and then go back to the fundamental spirit of the first draft or the draft 0.
Dibakar talked to me about it while we were still shooting Shanghai, and he just for the first time he mentioned that he is going to be doing this detective film and all that, which got me really interested because I grew up watching film noir, and I actually assumed that we would be having people with hats, which is like a very typical characteristic of film noir.
I didn't want Byomkesh to be a very physical hero. I wanted Byomkesh to be cerebral, and I also wanted Byomkesh to be a bit of a closet intellectual who, when faced with the rough and tumble of real villainy, can be sort of kind of shaken. Also, this is Byomkesh's first case. Everybody has to begin, and when you begin, you don't know and you make mistakes. And that's the Byomkesh that I want. I needed a young actor. So I looked. And one of the key things of Bengali culture at that point, or of a detective film, is understatement. Detectives are rational people, primarily. They're deep down, they're irrational. Otherwise, they wouldn't be detectives. So I think hyperbole or overstatement doesn't come usually to them. So what I noticed about Sushant in all his performances in TV and in films is that he consistently tries to understate. And an actor who tries to be understated in television and in a daytime soap, I think that actor has to be commended very well. And I realized that in Sushant lay something that could bring about Byomkesh. He looks ziddi and he looks vulnerable at the same time. That's what I liked. And then when I talked to him for the first time, I realized that he was prepared to go to any length of preparation to get to the role.
अभी तक मैंने इस बारे में सोचा नहीं कि आदि सर ने और दिवाकर सर ने मुझे इस फिल्म के लिए या इस कैरेक्टर के लिए सही क्यों समझा, लेकिन मैं हाल के इंटरव्यूज देख रहा था दिवाकर के, और उन्होंने इस क्वेश्चन का आंसर दिया था ये बोल के कि सुशांत खुद जिस तरीके का मैं नॉर्मल लाइफ में मेरा कैरेक्टर है कि मैं ज़्यादा अंदर रहता हूँ, बाहर कम रहता हूँ, मैं ऑब्जर्व बहुत करता हूँ, मैं ज़्यादा एक्सप्रेस नहीं करता लेकिन सोचता बहुत. तो ये जो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है मेरे अंदर और बाहर में, this was one of the most I think fundamental reasons why he thought I would be very close to or suitable for this character to play.
तुमने अपना नाम नहीं बताया, तुमने पूछा नहीं. अजीत बैनर्जी.
Ajit was my favorite character once when I had given the script to somebody to read, to somebody who knows all the Byomkesh stories. The first question she asked after closing the script was, who's playing Ajit, man? I can understand everything is fantabula, but who's playing Ajit? You will never be able to realize this if you don't have a kick-ass Ajit. So it was our casting director, Hani Trehan's wonderful suggestion. I knew of Anand Tiwari. I've seen him perform in plays, in commercials, in films and all that. But somehow the connection never clicked. But the moment I saw him on the screen test tape, it just happened for me.
Ajit was supposed to be nice and big. So I had to really work hard on my physique, about 1.5 2 months of hard training and great amount of mass consumption.
We got Ajit and Byomkesh to really work together. And there was amazing ways of workshopping where Ajit is a woman and Byomkesh is trying to patao her. You know, we did all these workshops just to get them to, where both of them don't know each other, where Ajit is trying to pick up Byomkesh, and completely contemporary.
If your motive is कि नहीं मिल रहे, then take it to the extreme of, oh shit, I think he's dead, I think he's dead, I think he's dead. You know, something like that.
Excuse me, वो ब्योमकेश बख्शी
वो सामने वो जो आदमी शतरंज खेल रहा है,
वो बंदर
वो बंदर थोड़ा सा कलंदर है, नहीं चाहिए.
ब्योमकेश बख्शी पागल
थोड़ा सा.
नहीं 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 आप मुझे गलत समझ रहे हैं. मैं यहाँ आया हूँ आपकी मदद मांगने. ऐसा है मेरे पिताजी 2 महीने से लापता है.
I never looked at it as Ajit or Byomkesh Bakshi. I looked at Ajit Banerjee as Ajit Banerjee and read every situation as Ajit Banerjee. And I hope that translates in the film. And people are able to see the love-hate relationship between Byomkesh and Ajit rather than Ajit being a sidekick. That's my personal and selfish approach to the character.
Every time Ajit is on screen with Byomkesh, Byomkesh becomes even more of Byomkesh because you can literally see them feeding off each other. And it's because of Anand Tiwari's brilliant interpretation of what we've written.
मेरे भाई को बहुत जोर से
पिताजी ऐसे ही कहीं चले गए होंगे. ये नहीं हो सकता.
इस दुनिया में ऐसे ही कुछ भी नहीं होता.
Ajit is shorter than the Banerjee. Because Ajit's first line in the first Byomkesh story is that I wanted to be a writer. I'm sure the Banerjee wanted to be a writer. But in the film, I had to change and bring about a lot of interesting changes in the character to make Ajit vital. And in this film, you will see that if Ajit had not been there, Byomkesh wouldn't have been there.
अच्छा तुम्हारे पिताजी पैसे वैसे छोड़ के गए क्या?
तुम्हें से क्या?
Swastika is an amalgamation of the quintessential femme fatale that Sharadindu Banerjee wrote twice or 3 times over in the overall Byomkesh canon. And Anguri is a distillation of that particular character. Anguri Devi today would be no man's slave. But because it's 1943, she, to some extent, is in a very, very chauvinistic and male-dominated society. But she's chafing against it.
I had never given audition in my life, so I didn't know how things happen, and I think I had given almost like 20 takes or something, which usually I don't think I've given so many takes while doing films over here. So there was like loads of sleepless nights. Am I in? Am I not in? Kind of a situation.
आपको सच में नहीं पता मैं कौन हूँ? आपने सचमुच मुझे पहले कभी नहीं देखा.
Swastika's character in the film has a lot of layers. She's intense, she's glamorous, she knows what she's doing, she's playing her beauty, she's educated, she's a fashion forward of her time. So all of that comes in play in this character. So to design for her and to dress her up was keeping all those details in mind. The satin had to be had to flow, or the swimsuit that she wears is in grey lace. So everything has a very rich and upmarket feel.
There was a lot of time given on the looks, how to dress up and how to walk, and the body language. So all that was important because she is, we were doing a film in the 1940s, and then she is a heroine. So she is something when she is at home, and she's something when she's meeting people, and she's something when she's working.
She's a hidden gem. Many in Calcutta know her. She's a huge star there. And she is also known hugely for her prodigious talent. But I think this is the time when the Hindi film audience will see what an actress can be. I mean, I'm really hoping that. I have never seen such instinctive acting. with not an iota of research and all that. She doesn't get into all that. She knows human beings. She knows Anguri very well. And yet she doesn't play herself. She is not at all the way Anguri is on screen. So, and she is one of those true old school actresses who transforms. Completely transforms. You cannot recognize her. I sincerely feel Swastika should have been born 50 years ago. Because she would have been one of the greatest divas of Indian screen.
तुम नहीं होते तो ये कुछ नहीं होता. A noir definitely is a late 19th century form which reached its culmination in mid-century America. But the noir that we are talking about in terms of Byomkesh is actually the noir lighting and the noir cinematic technique of the B movies of the 30s and 40s, which looked the way they did mainly because of the budget, and secondly because of the aesthetic treatment required to tell that kind of a story. And because they were B movies and because they were slightly cheaper, directors took much more liberties with the form and told slightly bolder tales. And crime, sexuality and perversion and the darker spaces of the psyche were a large part of the story. So I think if that's the noir form that you're talking about, that was already existent in Shivam Banerjee's writing. Calcutta in the 1940s was dust, smoke, trams, buses, the dark alleyways, teeming with people of all nationalities, multicultural, multilingual, colonial, white, black and all that. The very image that it inspires is a absolute peak of industrial society, which is where noir can happen. So that's why we just went for that look, and Calcutta inspires that look.
The film started and the pre-production started, and I started having the first meetings with Dibakar. He told me, and he actually showed me Ray's, Byomkesh scenes from black and white films. And he mentioned that there was also a TV series which was quite successful, but he didn't show it to me. So a lot of our referencing was to just get to understand what it was like back then, and especially for me being a foreigner. So we went through a lot of material, photographs, shots from other films, like other people's approach to all that. But with Dibakar, we never really reference other films in terms of the look and say, okay, this is what we're trying to do. What we always do is we just look at other stuff and pictures and paintings, and mostly it's about we like this, we don't like this, we like this. This helps us get in the same page.
You take a lot of things to take this move, and what if in the edit it feels loose? Byomkesh's evocation, the stories have an evocation of Calcutta, hugely. And that mid-century Calcutta, pre-independence Calcutta. And that Calcutta, for some reason, became a part of the Byomkesh canon for me, ever since I read those stories, when I was 14 or something like that.
Personally, what I like in any piece of work is a sense of history. That when do these things happen, or whatever happens, although we are focusing on a very personal story, which is what usually happens in films, these personal stories are happening in a context. They're happening in a time and place. You don't really see the difference between 42 and 47. You kind of say कि अच्छा 40s में हो रही है ये film. But to very specifically place it at a point was Vandana's force.
We had one very early draft of the film which Dibakar had written 7 years ago. He has also been working on this film for really long. So basis that draft, I drew up like a research plan. I hired a few researchers in Calcutta, and I would be making trips up and down Calcutta, monitoring the research.
Basically, we had a giant spreadsheet that was broken down into all the key places. One was police, one was social life, one was streets, what Calcutta looked like. We also went into what Calcutta sounded like. We also went into the Anglo-Indian, like the expatriate communities in Calcutta. So we ended up talking to a lot of, like Chinatown was a big part. We met Golok Mojumdar, who's 90 now and who lived through World War II, and he was also a police officer. So we got a lot of information about the police from him.
I wanted to give them what the police looked like in those days. What was their uniform, what was their badges of rank, and these associated things. Then what was their gradation and how they respected the gradation. That I gave them.
I remember there were two newspapers, Jugantar and Amrita Bajar, which she kind of went through it, and basically we gave her not only specifically 41, 42, but something few years before that and few years after that, because it's a film. So we have to think about the costume and the period, the cityscape and all. So I remember there were two collection of visuals. One was on, I think, Siddhartha Ghosh collection, and the other was Sheboti Mitra collection. These are family photographs. So I think she saw some of the ads. We provided her with specific ads from Statesman and Times of India.
Most of the Calcutta locations that we found, which nobody else has shot in till now, we found out because right in the beginning we decided that we would walk on foot through Calcutta. So we got in touch with this amazing guy called Iftikhar, who runs these very, very interesting and very, very popular Calcutta heritage walks.
I would have to say, in the 8 years of our existence, it had to be the most challenging task that we were up for, because Dibakar, much as I like him, he knows too much. He would often stop and just say, okay, was this around in 1942? And that's such a specific question. How can you say whether that lamppost was around in 1942, or those pavements were paved like that, or the streets, what kind of stones the streets had? So that kind of thing was challenging for us, but it opened up our eyes that there's still so much more to learn about Calcutta.
Calcutta is a city which is stuck in the past. Even if you go there now, it feels like it's stuck in the 1960s and 70s. I mean, architecturally, it has a lot of these old facades still very much there.
वो ये कि सुकुमार और वातानाबे आपस में कुछ प्लान बना रहे हैं, और हमें पता चलते चलते नहीं चला.
We always knew that we would shoot some parts in Calcutta and a larger part in Bombay by creating the interior and the exterior sets. And just how much exactly that kind of evolved over time. No, putting a 10 feet chroma is cheaper.
Marginally, because structure is the main cost of everything, structure.
But it was always an economic decision. They weighed that it was cheaper for them still to shoot a chunk of it in Bombay and lesser of it in Calcutta. So eventually we ended up dividing it such that all our main key locations, interiors, we ensured we did them in Calcutta, homes and key interiors. All exteriors we put on sets in Bombay, except 2 exteriors we did in Calcutta.
The film industry of Bombay can pull anything off if you're planned and if you respect. I think most of the time we fall short of our expectations because we don't respect each other. We think, अरे ये तो लुहार है, अरे ये तो carpenter है, अरे ये तो इसको कुछ नहीं आता है. But the fact is they know a lot. They don't say it because the class system exists and the culture of respecting the fellow workman doesn't exist. But the moment you do that, they come and contribute. So the trams happened, the cars happened, the bus that could be in 2 hours be changed into a single decker or a double decker bus happened. I mean, these are things that have never been tried in Bollywood before. And I didn't want to make this film to do things which nobody had done before. That's not why you make a film. You make a film to make a film. But in the process, lots of things happened which have never happened before, like a moving tram, a moving bus, like real tram lines or whatever, like this giant Calcutta set that we built. And frankly, we didn't have too much money. It had to happen with a lot of planning. So planning and respect, I think that's what